I'm an architect, urban designer, and at the beginning, let me thank Indian Road Congress and particularly Mr. Nahar in Delhi and his entire team for inviting me to share this in a community which I don't actually belong to. Okay, sorry.
I think the procedure was inadvertently not followed. Gentlemen, this is the technical session where we are going to have 7 papers presented by learned authors. First paper is Developing Smart Cities, A Way Forward by Architectural Professor Prasanna Desai. Paper number 2, Emerging Highway Engineering Challenges in Disaster-Prone Areas, author Dr. Rajendra Kumar Bhandari. Paper number 3, ITS in Regional Transportation with PPP Model Towards Smart Cities by Shri Sutom Suboi. I hope I am pronouncing it correctly. Paper 4, Urban Transport Corridors, Strategic Road Development Plan for Hyderabad City by Shri Gajapati Reddy. Next paper, Smart Drainage for Smart Cities by Ms. Minimol Korula. Paper number 6, Streamlining the Preparation of Smart City by Dr. Nandanan Das. And finally, Infrastructure Improvement for Smart Cities by Shri K.K. Pahuja. So gentlemen, we start this session now, and I request the author of paper 1, Professor Prasanna Desai, to please take over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and sorry for barging in first. Somebody should technically help me to open and connect this, so I will continue my talk. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and thank you, Mr. Nahar, and the entire IRC Congress for letting me speak here. I'm an architect, urban designer, but I'm presenting this as a common man. I've been working in this area for last 15 years as an architect, urban designer, and my whole presentation is based on certain realities, certain thoughts, certain research, and
good afternoon to you all. As you will see from the program, this session is devoted to smart cities. And when I looked at my presentation fitted into this, where the word smart city did not appear, I decided to really tune my presentation, original presentation, to be in flow with the session. So, which is why I am not technology dependent and I am not going by my slides. When we talk about emerging highway engineering challenges in disaster-prone areas, okay. Then it means many things to different people, but we need to know something. What do we need to know? First and foremost, we need to know the dynamics of highway engineering, national needs and aspirations, priorities. Most of us talk about this subject, oblivious of the fact that our needs are humongous. They are changing, and there are expectations within limited resource. Okay? Is it okay now? Or is it echo? Okay? Then, when we talk about this emerging challenges and put that in the context of disaster-prone situations, the situation becomes even more complicated. All this would not mean much if we don't know ourselves, our strengths. Where are we today and where we need to go? What are our weaknesses? And how best we can make use of the opportunities that come in our way. Merely strength is not enough. Merely vision is not enough. I think the action would be required. And also, above all this, the context is very different. There is a rapidly unfolding power of science and technology. what I used to do when I attended, Mr. Chairman, the IRC session first in 1962, I can tell you that technology has got mind-boggling change. And therefore, if we are not very sensitive to that context, we will be only scratching the skin. When we talk about India, it's a huge country, the size of a continent, and I always say one lifetime is not enough to understand Indian needs and complexities of the problems. Even best brains cannot comprehend that. And therefore, the first point I'm making is that when we talk about emerging challenges, I think we have to think to scale. I have often seen we miss the point by not having the mega view of India. That is very important because unless we have the view of the forest, it's pointless to talk about trees and leaves and chlorophyll. At the same time, the knowledge about trees is also important. In the disaster context, you would see many of the lectures you must have heard, it's ritualistic to say that India is a land of earthquakes, landslides, floods, cyclones, drought, and so on. And people will reel out statistics, which are already there in the books, that we are 68% of the area is drought prone, and therefore your roads will necessarily have to pass through those areas. 59% earthquake prone, 20% landslide prone, 12% flood prone, and 8% of the coastal belt with cyclones. Now, all these, you might have a textbook kind of approach to design of highways, but if the context is different, your designs will be different, and you will have to look at the problem afresh for a sustainable development. It's not merely development of a highway system, it's a development of a sustainable highway system, which is what I underscore. And we have committed this to ourselves, that in any project that we do here, any program we pursue, and highway engineering is no exception, that we have to integrate disaster mitigation in development planning. This is a fact which is not real appreciated. And above all this, I'm not in the habit of complicating the problem. I'm only making you aware of the complexity by saying that all these disasters that I have mentioned, there is a holistic context. They have no contract that one will appear after the other. Most of these may act in tandem, and therefore the problem becomes even more complex. In the context of highways, as though it's not enough to be put to the hazards of the kind, we have the traffic accidents, which also kill sometimes much more than the damage done by the traditional kind of disasters. And I would be failing in my presentation if I don't underscore that even you succeed in taking care of all that I mentioned just now, and if you forget to take care of the shape of things to come when there is a climate change, you will have temperatures will further rise, glaciers will melt, seawater will rise, flooding will be more intense, drought will drive people out from one part of the country to another, and there'll be more damaging cyclones, which means there'll be floods, storm surges, and so on. So, highway engineering development, please see to it that you have a holistic perception before you start solving this or that problem, a particular expressway somewhere or the other. The second point I'm making is that this country has created excitement. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I always feel that the IRC should be the forum, and Secretary General is also here, that this is the forum when we should take pride in so many first-rate projects which are being done in the country. We often get satisfied with the small presentations. I think there should be presentation. For example, the second largest road network we have in the country and consolidated experience of now decades that we have. We support nearly 1/6 of the world population and just on 2% of the landmass, and that is also vulnerable. So the challenges are not ordinary challenges. It's not something which is happening in the other country we can transplant into our system. And also, the future is so exciting that besides the challenges that we face, which are unprecedented, the investment levels for economic development are also going to be huge. So, what I would therefore say is that I'll give you a flavor of the projects that we are going through, of which an average highway engineer is not even aware. Oh, okay. Hello, is that okay now? So I was saying that I'm trying to bring an element of excitement in whatever we do, because if you want to do something out of ordinary, you have to change your ways, and how those things could be done, that is done by taking legitimate pride in the kind of accomplishment the country has and learning from what we could not achieve. For example, India's longest road tunnel, Chenani Nursery Tunnel. In fact, if you look at the presentation of this, I heard 2-3 times from those who are involved, it puts my head high that this is a masterpiece in civil engineering. 9.2 kilometer long, elevation something like 3,487 feet. And how are we taking the question of sustainable development in design of that bridge? This is a question, one question. How are we integrating disaster management with development planning is another question. Now, these are the questions upfront we'll have to ask ourselves. Take, for example, the largest overbridges in Asia, 23 kilometer long, 12-lane Kanpur overbridge on National Highway 2. Those of you who have been associated with you know that it's, again, enormous learning exercise, but also there are problems which are related to safety. India's longest sea bridge, that is Bandra-Worli Sea Link in Mumbai, again, placed in the disaster-prone context, it has got enormous problems. We have the world's highest rail bridge, Chenab Bridge between Bakal and Kauri in J&K. And all these, so far, you don't link it with disasters in the conventional sense. But now when we have so many accidents that are taking place, terrorist attacks which are there, so no part of the country is free from disasters in a real sense. Now, I have been all along working in the area of landslides. Dr. Porwal works on this. From 62 onwards, I've been speaking, and IRC forum I've spoken a number of times. What I want to say is that over the period of 50, 60 years, what we have learned, are we really using that? Has anybody documented those lessons learned, and in what way those very lessons are being used in the design of the highways as of today? So in this context, I would say that not only the new projects are coming, and we have to devote to this, but there are very challenging existing highways. What are we doing about it till such time disaster strike? Those of you who have traveled on the scary mountain roads, I'll name Kolamalai Ghat Road on the eastern Tamil Nadu, 70 continuous bands. You have seen in Uttarakhand, even 7 or 8 gives you a headache for the life. So 70 continuous bands and the kind of highway problems there. Now, this is not an ordinary highway of 10 kilometer, 15 kilometer that you have designed. You have to see in the geomorphological context how you handle those problems. Kelong Kistwar Road, 233 kilometer road in Himachal Pradesh, full of problems. Now, are we going to fix the problems individually, one or the other, or are we going to have a holistic perception that A, in new construction such problems don't come, and B, we have a package of control measures where we fix them one for all. Because if we have the technology and the competence, which we have, why is it that we are not using that competence to fix the problems one for all? And of course, I'm not mentioning Jozila. The Secretary General placed my paper in the Smart Cities, this thing, which I did not, but this is an opportunity for me, for which I thank him, that I go with the flow of the session, and I like to speak about smart cities in the context of disasters. When the National Commission on Urbanization gave its report in 1988, I was very closely following this, and they said the cities are the engines of growth. That is where they started. Now, smart cities are perceived as engines of growth. It's a laudable objective, but we have to ask hard questions. Efficiency of these should not be judged in terms of amount of money spent, amount of road network which is created, and infrastructure in that way, but should be that whether that infrastructure is really smart, whether it's safe, and whether it's free from hazards. Because no city can be smart unless it is safe. And when the Chief Secretary talked in the morning, he mentioned everything, and I wanted him to add the fifth one, which is the safe highways. I will, because time is short, I will simply take those smart cities which are listed by our government and tell you how important it is in the context of highways. Take, for example, Visakhapatnam, ranked 8th in the list of 20, poised to become India's first smart city. That is what is said. Population nearly 2 million. On the disaster map, on an average, 2 cyclones hit every year. Then there are tidal surges, storm winds, and you are aware that Hudhud cyclone hit on 12th October 2014, and it was worst, Mr. Chairman, in 140-year history. So what we are saying, in the morning we're talking about written periods and all this. In the modern context where extreme weather changes are taking place, we have to really see that the context is not what it is. The 140 years, it did not happen, it happened. Similarly, tsunami, for hundreds of years, we didn't experience it, 200 years, it occurred. So when we say that we are estimating vulnerability of highways for the future, we have to be sensitive to this point. And therefore, the smart city, Visakhapatnam, I'm sure, will have to perforce take that into account. Take, for example, Bhubaneswar. It tops the list of the first phase smart cities. Bhubaneswar is vulnerable to cyclones, floods, drought, tornado, heat waves, and lightning, everything. Now you may say that, well, we don't care so much in the highways about heat waves, lightning, and all that. But I can tell you that in a bigger perspective, all these are important. And Bhubaneswar, when the super cyclone came, before that, if you'd ask people of Bhubaneswar, they had not seen such a cyclone. But it became cyclone of the century. So, therefore, we had the unprecedented flood of 2001, which submerged 25 districts, and the super cyclone of 1999 caused humongous damage. So, if we are developing Bhubaneswar as a smart city, in what way those and our architect friends would perhaps respond to this, that how would they have factored in this kind of a fear or the danger, which is not a fear, but is a reality, going to be reality. Orissa experienced around 950 small and big cyclones and 451 tornadoes between 1891 and 1970. Now, why I'm telling you this is that it is not once in a while affair. It is something which happens, regularly happens. And therefore, I think we need to have some kind of rational approach, a scientific approach to deal with it. Take, for example, the smart city of Chennai. You know the floods, what havoc it caused. You know the cyclone, what havoc it caused. Now, roads affect the life of the people. Relief operations hindered. When Kashmir earthquake occurred, more damage was done because, not because of the earthquake, but because relief operations could not take place. So we have this kind of a problem. And in Chennai, now what has happened? There are water bodies. Nearly 300 of the water bodies, they've been filled and roads have been constructed. Now, they may be with the best of the specifications, best of the technology, but are they safe? Are they sustainable? No, they are not sustainable because time and again it has been proven. Recent floods have given you the testimony that they are not safe. What are we going to do about it? So challenges of highway engineering is not merely designing new systems, but taking care of what might happen to the systems that we have already put in place. Ahmedabad and Surat. Ahmedabad is the second largest city in the list of 20, sixth in the ranking. Now, Surat as a smart city, you know the earthquake of 2001 and the floods of 2006. Earthquake killed 19,000 people, and of which 17,000 were killed in Kutch alone. Then about 150 died of 2006 floods. And I can tell you I was associated with both. It was a nightmare. Relief operations could not be conducted because roads were not available for some time. And the people, those who were homeless, they could not even be rescued and taken to their shelter.